I'm Dr. Daniel, a human doctor who has decided to concentrate on producing chicken eggs. I produce millions of chicken eggs on 2 different farms with 2 different purposes. Number 1, a 400-acre farm with a capacity of 60,000 breeder chickens, where I produce eggs for the sole purpose of hatching chicks. On this farm, with 60,000 breeders divided between layer breeders and broiler breeders, I can produce 12 million eggs from the broiler breeders and 6.5 million eggs from the layer breeders every year. Also, I have a 3-acre farm with a current capacity of 5,000 layer chickens, from where I produce eggs for eating. These you might call table eggs. Here, I can produce over 1.5 million layer eggs every year. How do I do this? First, chickens are chickens, and for chickens to produce eggs, you need to do the same things over and over again. Ingredient number 1, the chickens themselves. And ingredient number 2, the chicken feeds. Now when we go to the chickens, there are mainly 3 groups of the chickens here that produce the eggs. The layer breeders, the broiler breeders, and the commercial layers. The layer breeders and the broiler breeders I do import from Europe because they are not available in my country. Once the broiler breeders are hatched in Europe, they are delivered to my country on the very same day using an aeroplane. And once we receive them, they are taken to the farm immediately and brooding is carried out. What is brooding? Brooding is a period under which chickens are given special care. Naturally, the way a chicken is that it will lay an egg, incubate and hatch the egg, and once the babies come out, the chicken will look after its babies until a particular point when the babies don't need the mother's care. But during the time when they need the mother's care, they need heating, the mother scratches for them to get food. But when we do import our chicks from Europe, these chickens don't have mothers, and that means that the brooder becomes the mother. In the brooder, the chickens are provided with heating, with water, with food, and with special vaccinations to ensure that they go through the initial days of life when they are comfortable and that as few as possible are lost because they do not have a mother. After the brooding stage, the chickens will then develop to the developer stage, which is actually a very, very sensitive stage because it's at this point that we prepare the chickens to be monster layers. During the developer stage, which is between the 12th week and the 18th week, the chickens develop their reproductive system, which is important for the production of eggs. Remember that the end product here is chicks, because the more chicks we get, the more money we get. And how do we get more chicks? More eggs. That means we want to concentrate on making as many eggs as we can. So when it comes to the layer breeders, they are naturally layers. So it's quite easy for them to lay eggs. These, on our breeder farm, we have raised in a very innovative chicken house. This chicken house is a chicken house that measures 100 meters in length by 12 meters in width. It's a chicken house that has 2 stories, and it's very, very creative. The thing with farms is that you want to minimize entry into the chicken house because the more times you enter the chicken house, the more likelihood it is that the chickens are going to get sick and they will die. So you want to avoid losses. We've made it creative in such a way that number 1, it has 2 levels. So that means that it saves space. We have 100 by 12 meters going up and not just moving on the ground level. That saves a lot of space. If you have very little space, you can maximize this and ensure that you can utilize your small space to keep as many chickens as possible. But that's not where it stops. Number 2, the feeding system is very creative. No one needs to enter the chicken house in order to supply the chickens feed. Someone only needs to move to the very top floor using a wheelbarrow or something like that, and then the feed will be fed through pipes and it will be delivered to the chickens without anyone ever needing to step inside the chicken house. The water is also automated, and the laying boxes where the eggs are collected is also automated. That means that without any need of entering the chicken house, people can collect the chicken eggs from the outside of the house. That increases the biosecurity of the house and ensures that there's very little diseases inside the chicken house, and that means very little likelihood of diseases for the final consumer. From these layer breeders, I collect over 6.5 million eggs every year. When it comes to the broiler breeders, they are not naturally egg producers because they just want to put on weight. And when it comes to chicken, the higher the weight, the less the egg production. So managing weight in broiler breeders is very key, and that makes managing broiler breeders quite complicated. It's not for everyone to raise. These I do raise in chicken houses that measure 15 meters by 200 meters long. And these have very complicated feeding systems in order to make sure that the broiler breeders do not gain too much weight. Feed systems that include things like alternate day feeding. For example, you might feed them today, skip a day without feeding them, feed them the next day. Also, on the days on which they feed, you give them feed, and in 20 minutes they are done with the feed. And for the rest of the day, they're not going to be feeding because you want to control their weight. From the broiler breeders, I produce over 12 million eggs a year. Once all the breeder eggs are collected, they are taken to an incubator where they are incubated for 21 days, after which they all hatch into small little day-old chicks for broilers and for layers. And these I do sell to farmers all around Uganda. Some of these chicks go to my commercial layer farm of 3 acres. Our current capacity at the farm is 5,000 birds. Many systems exist that are used for raising commercial layers, but the most common are cages and deep litter system. The cage system is the system where birds are literally kept inside cages. All their food is provided to them inside the cages, the water, they never get to move around. They will remain in the cages for maybe 70, 80 weeks until they are done laying eggs. It's an efficient system for laying eggs, but a lot of people will tell you they don't like it because of the animal rights and the comfort of the chickens. They never really get to move around as soon as they get into the cages. But on my farms, I use the deep litter system. The deep litter system is where the chickens are placed inside a chicken house and litter or bedding is provided. Usually it's wood shavings, sometimes coffee husks or rice husks. They are spread all over the floor of the chicken house, and the chickens get to move around the house, scratch the litter. They are provided with water and food, and they will lay their eggs. Commercial layers come in when they are 1 day old, and at 18 weeks of maturity, they usually start to lay their eggs. The main things that happen to the layers while in their houses are vaccinations, debeaking to make sure that their beaks are cut short and so that they don't harm each other, because when they do have long beaks, they can harm each other. And they are also prepared for laying through giving them different types of feed. After 18 weeks, once they start dropping their eggs, these table eggs are then picked out from the chicken houses and then they are sold to my community. I have a tricycle which I mainly use on my commercial layer farm to deliver eggs to my outlet and to different clients. The commercial layers will remain in production for up to 80 or 90 weeks, after which they are sold off for meat. So that's the brief story of how I produce millions of chicken eggs on my 2 farms. You can click right here to watch a video of my free-range poultry farm. Don't forget to subscribe. Catch you next time.